A janitor, invisible to the executives above him, spotted a flaw that could have cost the company $100 million. When he spoke up, no one listened, until the CEO walked in. What happened next? This is the story of how one quiet act of courage changed everything. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on notifications. Stories like this? They're why we do what we do. Invisible. The fluorescent lights of Nexacorp's 32nd floor buzzed softly, casting a sterile glow over the empty office cubicles. It was 11:30 p.m., and the only sound was the rhythmic squeak of a mop sliding across the polished linoleum. Marcus Boone moved methodically, his calloused hands guiding the worn handle with the quiet precision of a man who had spent years perfecting an unseen craft. At 58, his shoulders carried the weight of a life spent in service, first as a Navy engineer, now as the night janitor for one of Denver's most prestigious tech firms. He hummed an old Motown tune under his breath, the melody a small comfort in the cavernous silence. The work was lonely, but Marcus didn't mind. There was a kind of peace in these late hours, a world where no one demanded anything from him beyond a clean floor and empty trash bins. Then he heard it, a faint, persistent hiss, like air escaping a tire. Marcus paused, tilting his head. The sound wasn't coming from the vents. He followed it, his rubber-soled shoes silent against the tile, until he reached the door of server room B. The access panel glowed green, unlocked, a rare oversight. Inside, the hum of processors filled the air, but beneath it, something was wrong. A thin trickle of water snaked down the far wall, dripping steadily onto one of the primary server stacks. Marcus's stomach tightened. He didn't need a degree in computer science to know what happened when water met electronics. He reached for his radio. Security, this is Marcus. There's a leak in server room B. Could be bad. A crackling sigh. Facilities handles that. Call him in the morning. Marcus clenched his jaw. By morning, the damage could be catastrophic. He stepped inside, the chilled air raising goosebumps on his arms. The leak wasn't massive, just a loose joint in the overhead plumbing, but every drop was a threat. Without hesitation, he grabbed his tool belt from the janitorial cart. 20 years in the Navy had taught him how to improvise. He twisted a spare rubber gasket around the pipe's joint, cinched it tight with a zip tie, and wedged a plastic bucket beneath the last drips. Not a permanent fix, but enough to buy time. Before leaving, he scribbled a note on the back of a work order and taped it to the server rack. Leak in overhead pipe. Temporary fix in place. Needs repair ASAP. M. Boone, custodial. The next morning, Daniel Cho, Nexacorp's IT director, strode into the server room with his usual air of impatience. He spotted the note, scanned it, and scoffed. "Since when do janitors touch my servers?" he muttered, crumpling the paper into his pocket. Across the building, Marcus clocked out, his shift ending just as the corporate world began its day. He didn't see Daniel ignore his warning. Didn't see the first server flicker ominously at noon. But by 2:17 p.m., everyone saw the chaos unfold. Elena Vasquez, Nexacorp's razor-sharp CEO, stormed into the emergency board meeting, her heels clicking like gunfire. "We nearly lost the Chicago client's entire data migration last night," she snapped. "A leak in server room B almost fried the primary stack. Why wasn't this flagged?" Daniel shifted in his seat. Some janitor messed with the pipes. Probably made it worse. Elena's gaze turned glacial. She picked up the phone. "Bring me Marcus Boone." The room held its breath. Marcus, halfway home on the bus, answered his buzzing cell. "Mr. Boone," said the nervous HR rep, "the CEO wants to see you. Now." His heart pounded. Was he being fired? He had no idea his life was about to change forever. The meeting. The elevator ride to the 40th floor was the longest 30 seconds of Marcus Boone's life. His reflection in the polished metal doors showed a man out of place. Wrinkled custodial uniform, salt and pepper stubble, and a name tag that suddenly felt too heavy. Around him, executives in tailored suits tapped at their phones, barely glancing his way. He tightened his grip on the mop handle he'd unconsciously carried with him, its presence a small comfort. When the doors slid open, he was met by a pair of stone-faced assistants. "This way, Mr. Boone," the younger one said, leading him down a corridor lined with floor-to-ceiling windows. Denver glittered below, a sprawl of ambition he'd only ever observed from the edges. At the end of the hall stood a set of double doors, their frosted glass etched with the Nexacorp logo. The assistant knocked once before opening them. Elena Vasquez's office was nothing like Marcus expected. No ostentatious desk, no gilded awards, just a sleek, minimalist space dominated by a massive live-edge oak table strewn with blueprints and circuit boards. The CO herself stood at the window, back turned, her silhouette sharp against the afternoon sun. "Mr. Boone." She didn't turn around. "Do you know why you're here?" Marcus swallowed. "I'm guessing it's not about the floors." A beat of silence. Then Elena pivoted, and for the first time he saw her face, not the steely corporate mask from magazine covers, but something far more dangerous. Curiosity. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a single sheet, a damage assessment report. $98.7 million, projected data loss, Chicago client contract. $12.4 million, hardware replacement costs. $0, actual loss, incident contained. Marcus's throat went dry. "That leak you fixed last night?" Elena tapped the paper. "It was 2 inches away from flooding a server stack handling 40% of our Midwest client data. If that water had reached the motherboards, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Nexacorp would be drafting bankruptcy filings." A cold sweat prickled Marcus's neck. He'd known it was serious, but these numbers were stratospheric. How?" Elena interrupted. "How did you know to check that pipe?" The truth spilled out before he could filter it. The sounded like a bad valve seal on a submarine's ballast system. "I served on the USS Roosevelt, 1998 to 2010. Engineering Corps." Elena's eyebrows lifted. She opened a drawer, pulled out another file, this one stamped Navy records in bold red letters. Marcus's stomach dropped. "Petty Officer First Class Marcus Boone," she read aloud. "Specialty, nuclear reactor maintenance. 3 commendations for critical system salvages." She snapped the file shut. "Why the hell are you cleaning toilets?" The question hung in the air like a detonation countdown. Marcus looked at his hands, the same hands that had once calibrated reactor cores to within 0.001% tolerance, now speckled with bleach stains. "Life happened," he said quietly. "My wife got sick. Medical bills don't care about security clearances." Elena studied him for a long moment. Then she grabbed her blazer from the chair. "Come with me." Panic flared. "Ma'am, if this is about disciplinary action, it's about fixing what's broken," she said, already striding toward the door. "Starting with this company's eyesight." She led him to the executive boardroom, where 20 of Nexacorp's top brass sat in mid-meeting. Conversations died as they entered. Daniel Cho's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "Everyone," Elena announced, "meet your new director of facilities operations." The silence was absolute. Daniel shot to his feet. "You can't be serious. This man's a janitor. And you're a fool who ignored a 9-figure risk because it came on a post-it note." Elena tossed Marcus's Navy file onto the table. It slid to a stop in front of the CFO. "While you were busy delegating, Boone here was doing what he's done his whole career, saving disasters before they happen." Marcus stood rooted to the spot, his mind racing. This had to be a dream. Or a cruel joke. But then he caught the expressions around the table, not just shock, but something worse. Fear. The fear of men who suddenly realized they'd underestimated something vital. Elena turned to him. "Well, Director Boone? Anything to add?" The room swayed. He gripped the back of a chair, the words coming slow at first. I didn't ask for this. But if you're giving me a shot to do more than push a mop." He met Daniel's glare head-on. "Then yeah, let's fix some leaks." A murmur rippled through the room. Someone at the far end clapped, once, twice, until the whole table erupted in reluctant applause. All except Daniel, who stormed out, his chair screeching like a wounded animal. As the noise faded, Elena leaned close. "One condition," she murmured. "That mop? It stays in the closet from now on." Marcus looked down at the handle still clutched in his hand. For 12 years, it had been his anchor. Now, for the first time since the Navy, he let it go. Somewhere in the building, a pipe hissed softly behind a freshly repaired wall. No one heard it this time. But Marcus knew. And that made all the difference. Backlash. The first 30 days were hell. Marcus Boone's promotion should have been a victory, proof that competence could trump pedigree. Instead, it became a war fought in whispers and sideways glances. His new office, a glass-walled cube in the facility's wing, felt less like a sanctuary and more like a fishbowl. Every morning he arrived to find his chair adjusted too high for comfort, his computer mysteriously unplugged. The final insult came when someone left a janitorial supply catalog on his desk, a yellow sticky note attached. "In case you miss your real job." He crumpled the note in his fist. Across the building, Daniel Cho's campaign of quiet sabotage continued. Maintenance requests from Marcus's team were lost. Budget approvals stalled in endless review cycles. When Marcus proposed upgrading the server room's leak detection system, a no-brainer after the near disaster, Daniel's email reply was a masterclass in bureaucratic knifework. "While we appreciate your unique perspective, such expenditures require thorough cost-benefit analysis. Perhaps focus on ensuring the trash bins are emptied promptly." The worst part wasn't the disrespect. It was the silence from everyone else. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, Marcus found himself back on the 32nd floor, mop in hand. Old habits died hard. The rhythmic swish of the bristles against tile was a meditation. "You shouldn't be doing that." Lena stood in the doorway, her arms crossed over her Nexacorp intern lanyard. At 22, she had her mother's sharp cheekbones and his stubborn chin. The sight of her here, in the belly of the beast that had swallowed his pride for years, sent a pang through his chest. "Somebody's gotta keep this place running," Marcus grunted, wringing out the mop. She stepped closer, her heels clicking like accusation. "That's not your job anymore. Director." The title tasted bitter. "Tell that to Cho's boys." Lena snatched the mop from his hands. "Stop. Just stop." Her voice cracked. "You fought your way out of the basement, Dad. Why are you still acting like you belong there?" The question hung between them, heavy as a body blow. Marcus stared at his daughter, really stared, and saw the fear beneath her anger. The same look she'd worn at 14, watching the repo men take their furniture. Before he could answer, the fire alarm screamed to life. Red light strobed as the building's automated voice boomed. "Emergency detected in server room A. All personnel evacuate immediately." Marcus was already running. Server room A housed Nexacorp's newest quantum computing array, a $200 million investment currently hosting the entire Asia-Pacific client demo. He skidded through the doorway to find Daniel and 3 engineers frantically typing at overheating consoles. "We're losing the entire cluster," Daniel shouted. "Cooling system failure." Marcus didn't hesitate. He shoved past the engineers and ripped open the maintenance panel. The problem was instantly obvious. Someone had overridden the thermal throttling protocols to squeeze extra performance for the demo. Now the liquid cooling pumps were failing under the strain. "Shut it down," he barked. Daniel's face purpled. "We can't. The Singapore deal. You'll lose more than a deal when these cores melt through the floor." Marcus grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed the emergency cutoff switch. The room plunged into silence as the arrays powered down. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then the CFO's voice cut through the tension. "Vasquez is going to skin us alive." Marcus wiped grease from his hands onto his dress slacks, the first pair he'd owned in a decade. "Not if we fix it first." He turned to the engineers. "I need 2 gallons of distilled water, a car battery, and every desk fan you can find." Daniel scoffed. "You expect us to believe a janitor can?" "Former nuclear engineer," Lena corrected, stepping forward with her phone already dialing. "And he's not working alone." As the team scrambled to gather supplies, Marcus met his daughter's eyes. She gave him the smallest nod. The message was clear: time to show them who you really are. By 1:17 a.m., They jury-rigged a makeshift cooling loop using the battery to power auxiliary pumps, the fans duct-taped to create airflow where the broken vents had failed. When the Singapore clients logged back in at 8 a.m. local time, they'd never know anything had gone wrong. As the engineers cheered, Marcus noticed Daniel slinking toward the door. "Cho!" The IT director froze. Marcus didn't raise his voice. "Next time you gamble with company property, make sure you know how to cash out." The unspoken threat hung in the air. "I know what you did." Daniel left without another word. Lena appeared at Marcus's side, handing him a steaming cup of vending machine coffee. "Still think you don't belong here?" He studied the improvised cooling system, a beautiful, ridiculous contraption of zip ties and desperation. Not Navy grade. Not even close. But it worked. "Maybe," he admitted. "But I'm starting to remember who I am." Somewhere in the walls, the building's pipes groaned softly. This time, everyone heard it. And for the first time, they all turned to Marcus for answers. The ripple. 1 year later, the email blast went out to every Nexacorp employee at 9:03 a.m. Effective immediately, Marcus Boone is promoted to Chief Operations Officer. All departments will report directly to him in our new operational restructuring. The break room exploded with chatter. Up in IT, 3 junior engineers high-fived over their keyboards. Down in custodial, old Jim from the night shift grinned and tapped his thermos against Marcus's old locker, still kept empty, like a shrine. But the real celebration happened in the boardroom, where Elena Vasquez slid a single sheet of paper across the table. The numbers didn't lie. Asterisk, 37% increase in operational efficiency. $28 million saved in preventative maintenance. Is 0 critical system failures. 12-month streak, asterisk. "You've earned this," Elena said, pushing a brass nameplate toward him. The engraving gleamed. Marcus Boone. Marcus ran a finger over the letters. A lifetime of just the janitor, and not your job, echoed in his head. He thought of the Navy days, the hospital bills, the nights he'd spent scrubbing floors while engineers who'd never fixed anything real ignored his suggestions. "Funny thing about pipes," he said at last. "People only notice them when they break." Elena smiled. "Good thing we finally started listening to the man who hears them before they burst." The promotion ceremony spilled into the atrium at noon. Every department showed up, even Daniel Cho, though he lingered near the exits. When Marcus stepped up to the microphone, the crowd quieted. They expected a corporate speech. What they got was something far more dangerous. "I won't stand here and tell you anyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps," Marcus began. "That's bullshit. The world's built to keep people in their lanes." A murmur ran through the crowd. "But here's what I know, talent doesn't have a dress code. Genius doesn't wear a title. And sometimes, if you're damn lucky, someone looks past the uniform and sees the human underneath." He locked eyes with Lena in the front row, her intern badge replaced with a systems engineer ID. "We've got a company to run. New protocols to implement. But from now on, we do it with our eyes open." He raised the COO nameplate like a torch. "If you see something broken, fix it. If you hear a leak, stop it. And if anyone tells you it's not your job," the corners of his mouth lifted. "Remind them whose company this really is." The applause shook the glass ceilings. Epilogue. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the Denver School of Technology's auditorium, adjusting a too-tight tie as 50 high schoolers fidgeted before him. The banner behind him read, "STEM Outreach Day, sponsored by Nexacorp." A boy in the front row raised his hand. "Is it true you went from janitor to COO in 1 year?" Marcus chuckled. "Took me 58 years to get there, kid. The uniform just changed a few times." He leaned on the podium. "Now, who here wants to learn how to spot a failing server before it crashes?" Every hand shot up. As he walked them through his famous, listen to the pipes, troubleshooting method, his phone buzzed. Lena's text glowed on the screen. "Just prevented a meltdown in R&D. Used your coolant hack. You were right. They do teach this stuff in Navy nuke school. P.S. Dinner tonight? Your turn to buy." Marcus smiled. Somewhere in Nexacorp's walls, the pipes hummed contentedly. And this time? The whole company was listening. Closing. See, want more real-life stories about ordinary people achieving the extraordinary? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the next unsung hero could be you. And hey, drop a comment below. When did you step up when no one was watching?